Marcus was driving home from work when he got the call. His younger sister, vibrant and full of life, had died suddenly in a car accident. Just that morning, they'd exchanged messages about planning a family gathering. Now everything had changed. In the days that followed, Marcus felt like floating outside his body. The reality was too big to comprehend. He kept expecting her to text, to call, to laugh at one of his jokes. The abruptness of her death shattered his sense of safety and normalcy. There had been no time to prepare, no final words, and the shock left him feeling frozen. For Marcus, grief didn't come in waves. It came like an earthquake. Welcome to this mini-series on understanding the language of grief, loss, and trauma. My name is Nathalie Himmelrich. I'm a somatic practitioner, psychological therapist, educator, and author, specializing in grief and trauma, and the host of the How to Deal with Grief and Trauma podcast. Grief and trauma are deeply human experiences, yet many of us struggle to describe what we are going through or to understand what others are facing. The vocabulary of loss is vast, varied, and sometimes overwhelming. In this short podcast episode series, we'll explore the different types of grief, loss, and trauma that people encounter throughout life. Each mini-episode serves both as an educational tool and a compassionate companion for anyone trying to make sense of their own experience with grief, loss, and trauma, or someone who is supporting someone else who is. These terms are more than labels. They are doorways into greater understanding, healing, and connection. Whether you are a bereaved parent, a caregiver, a therapist, or someone walking alongside a grieving friend or someone who has experienced trauma, these bite-sized episodes aim to give you language, insight, and tools. Each one includes a definition, some key considerations, an explanation of why it matters, relevant podcast episodes, and frequently asked questions that I have been asked by my clients and you, the listener of the podcast. And my answers are all grounded in both professional and lived experience. So let's begin. Sudden grief or sudden loss. The grief that follows an unexpected, sudden loss, such as through an accident, suicide, or heart attack, is called sudden loss, and the experience sudden grief. It is characterized by a sudden rupture in daily life and a profound sense of disbelief and disorientation. Unlike anticipated loss, which allows some time for emotional preparation, sudden loss often leaves survivors in a state of shock. So what is there to know about sudden loss and sudden grief? So shock, disbelief, and trauma responses are very common. There's often no time to prepare emotionally or logistically, and individuals may feel blindsided and emotionally paralyzed. Sudden loss can also lead to intense grief and guilt or feelings of unfinished business, especially if the death occurred following a conflict, during a time of distance, or without the opportunity to say goodbye. People may experience difficulty sleeping, flashbacks to the moment they received the news, or fear about additional unexpected losses. It is also common to struggle with questions like, why did this happen, or could I have prevented it? So understanding sudden loss helps address the urgent need for emotional first aid and trauma support. When grief is layered with shock and trauma, the bereaved may feel isolated in their reactions and feel pressured to move on before they've even processed what has occurred. by normalizing the intensity of the sudden grief and acknowledging its unique characteristic, loved ones, professionals, and communities can better provide trauma-informed care and compassionate support. Recognition also helps the grieving individual make sense of their inner chaos and develop strategies to cope without judgment. There are many episodes in which I speak with people who have experienced sudden loss, such as stillbirth, accidents, suicide, and homicide. For example, in episode 2, I speak with Katja about the loss of her son through homicide. And there are many episodes that follow which cover interviews with mothers who have experienced stillbirth losses, which are in their nature unexpected and sudden. For example, episode 5, 7, and 11 in season 1. Check out the episode overview for more examples. Some of the questions which I have been asked, which is, first one, why can't I accept the loss? Sudden loss disrupts your emotional and cognitive processing. Acceptance takes time, and it often starts only after the initial shock wears off. The abruptness of the loss can feel surreal, which is a natural protective response. And then the following on question usually is, how long will the shock last? And that varies. It can be days, months, and often overlaps with trauma. Some people begin to come out of shock within a few days, while others may take significantly longer. So there is actually no timeline that can be given. One often and common question is, should I have seen it coming? And that obviously depends on the kind of loss, and so it's not necessarily the case. Even with subtle warning signs, hindsight often distorts our perspective. Sudden loss is not a result of your failure to notice in a sense of an accidental overdose, for example. It's a response to the nature of the loss. Another question that I've received is, what helps in the early days? What can help are grounding techniques, having a trauma-informed support person as a therapist, avoiding major decisions, and allowing yourself to feel without trying to make sense of everything right away. Can this turn into PTSD? Yes, especially if the event was witnessed or involved graphic or violent details. Now, they don't need to be witnessed, but even hearing about those can lead to secondary trauma. So, seeing a trauma-specific therapy can help reduce long-term symptoms. So it's really important to have not just someone who is grief literate, but also someone who is trauma-informed. In the next episode, we'll be looking at traumatic grief. So stay tuned. I hope this episode has helped you feel more grounded in the language of loss, grief, or trauma, and maybe even offered you some clarity, validation, or insight into your own experience or the experience of someone you care about. Grief and trauma are deeply personal, yet universal. When we can name what we're feeling, we take one powerful step closer to healing and the integration of our experience back into our life. If this series resonates with you, I invite you to keep exploring. You'll find more resources, courses, and ways to work with me at nathaliehimmelrich.com. And of course, you're always welcome to revisit any of the episodes whenever you need a gentle reminder that you're not alone. Until next time, take good care of your heart.